A kangaroo running around Oshawa, a one-armed baboon biting someone in northern Ontario, a herd of zebras in Saskatchewan. These are just some of the weird animal stories that have made headlines over the last little while, and they make you laugh, but there's a real problem with this. Dolf DeJong is the president and CEO of the Toronto Zoo, and he joins me now to talk about this. Dolf, we can all laugh about a kangaroo running around Oshawa or a baboon. We shouldn't laugh at them biting someone, but there's a problem when you've got a herd of zebras running around Saskatchewan in a climate that they're not used to and won't thrive in. How did these things happen in Canada? I would have thought there were laws against what kind of animals you can import.
Yeah, Brian, I wish these were the only incidents we were talking about, but a quick search will show we've had incidents right up to fatalities for young people where people have animals in their care. They don't necessarily have the training or the expertise to keep them, and they are placed in harm's way as far as the individual animals, and public safety is compromised. And it's really a product of what's this patchwork quilt of legislation locally, provincially, and nationally. And we'd really, really love to see some systemic animal welfare legislation go in place when it comes to exotic animals to make sure they're getting the best care possible. But we also need to be talking about some prohibitions when it comes to public safety. Brian, we've talked a few times. You seem like a great guy, but I don't think you should be able to own a tiger. I don't think you need a cobra. Those are things that are currently falling through the cracks, and I think everybody expects it's in place, and it's not.
Let's talk about tigers because, beginning of the pandemic, we all got obsessed with Tiger King, and probably a lot of Canadians looked and went, oh, America. Oh, of course they have that in America. There are people keeping roadside zoos or tigers as household pets in this country, aren't there?
Yes, and what's scary about it is not only that it's happening, is that we actually don't have a handle on what animals are where, what level of care they're getting, what their housing looks like. And this is serious business. In the case of a place like your Toronto Zoo, this is an accredited site with a significant staff complement with years of training before you're working with animals like that to make sure you can meet their needs of care and that our team get home safe at the end of the day. And it's a little bit terrifying that you see folks moving from municipality to municipality as legislation's introduced. And that really puts a lot of pressure on those smaller municipalities and lets the bad players really just kind of leapfrog around.
So in the case I mentioned earlier about the herd of zebras, the Saskatchewan government actually did confiscate them, and temporarily at least, they're housing them at a zoo that the province funds and runs. But those animals were banned, but it looks like it's provincial legislation. Do we not have federal legislation banning you from importing exotic animals, or is that not in place, or are people just circumventing the law to get these animals into the country?
Well, it's a few different things, Brian. You have like the Convention for the International Trade of Endangered Species that many of these animals do get filtered out through. But you also have a significant exotic animal market where a lot of smaller folks are selling these individual animals privately. And then you also have a black market. So you have these various layers. And, we work closely with Canadian Border Services, and when they confiscate animals, make sure ideally they can get returned, but if not, they can have an appropriate forever home. Again, it goes to the various gaps, and what we'd love to see, we actually saw glimpses of with Bill S-241, the Jane Goodall Act, which started with welfare standards and a list of around 700 essentially prohibited animals. Keeping in mind, people often will buy an animal, it'll be small, it'll be cute. It's going to grow if it's the case of certain alligators to 8-10 feet long. You're not going to be able to care for this in your private home. So we want to see a more sophisticated program come into play to manage this.
And so what you're saying is that you need both federal and provincial legislation and regulations around this to help achieve your goal.
Absolutely. And the province of Ontario has taken some good steps with the Pause Act. It's starting to talk about animals in distress and being able to remove them from those situations. So we're pleased to see the government starting to address it, but it doesn't get to the core question of suddenly you have a viper and you're showing it to your friends on a weekend, and what happens next? You can guess what happens after folks get together, and a lot of these stories are folks not necessarily trying to do anything wrong, but these animals escape, they're at large, other people are placed at risk. And again, the easiest solution is just not having them in private hands.
I remember interviewing someone involved in animal rescue several years ago, and they got a call from someone out in suburban Ottawa. They had purchased a poisonous spider that had enough venom that it could take down an elephant, and they thought it was a good idea to have it as a pet without putting it in any sort of container. And the man who brought it home, his wife essentially said, "That goes or I go. It's one or the other. You're not letting a poisonous spider run around." But you know, people have bizarre ideas about what they want to do for entertainment. It's not good for them, and it's not good for the animal.
No, it's not at all. And it actually goes to this notion of exotic animals as a novelty that people just should have. And it's nothing could be further from the truth. You know, you look at my profession, and historically there was an element of collection. Hey, we'll show this, the public will be really interested. We're moving to a model where we want to make sure the animals in our care have a clear conservation, education, research purpose. You know, tigers are a great example. Amur tigers, Sumatran tigers, each of those species are 400 or 500 individuals left in the wild. So zoos have an important role to play, raising awareness, maintaining genetics through our conservation breeding programs. We have a job to do to support their wild counterparts. If you have this just because you think it's neat and you want to show your friends on the weekend, it's time to look in the mirror.
All right, Dolf, thanks so much for the time, and good luck moving forward with the various levels of government and bringing some sanity and some safety and care for the animals. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Let us know what you think. Drop a comment down below, share this on social media, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.